Hello, everyone. My name is Julie, and I am here with Jonathan Widran. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited
Absolutely.
about this conversation.
Uh-huh.
We're just going to get right into it. We have about 30 minutes. And
Okay.
so if you would just tell me a little bit about yourself and
Okay.
maybe a little bit of your background.
Okay. As far as work related, I am a entertainment journalist. I'm a freelance writer and have a business for many, many years. So I'm usually the guy interviewing the famous or independent artists, thousands of them over the last 20 some years. So I do that.
Wow.
That's my work. And and as far as on a spiritual level, which has kind of become this other thing, I've had my background is Jewish, and there was a point in the late '90s when I became a Christian. Things led to a certain point, and then since then, one of the things was the death of a close friend and all that. I've kind of evolved a little bit because I felt like certain things about religion were kind of limiting. So, but then there was a point when I was not sure exactly what happens when you die. Like if religions tell you this or so and so says this, it seems like it's bigger, but I didn't know what to believe exactly. And what happens, everyone has this idea of like what, so I never really thought about it until I started having these experiences a
Mm,
couple of years ago that took me there. But anyway, but I'm a writer by profession, and this is
wonderful.
talking to people is what I do for my job every day. So I've been doing this for a long time.
But
And
now you're in
you
the
know
hot seat. It's not a hot
yeah,
seat.
yeah, right.
It's
I
a,
like
it's
it
good.
though. I like it though.
Yeah.
I've done a few interviews and stuff. So I let me just say though, I'm more eloquent writing than I am speaking. So I'll do my
Oh,
best.
oh,
It,
no.
it, the writing is like you go, where's that come from? It's like you're channeling its creativity, but
Yes.
I enjoy. I'm obviously a people person because I work in that in a business where you kind of have to be. So
Very nice. Well,
yeah.
great. So I'm gonna just come out and ask you, when was your first spiritual experience, if that's what you would call it, or supernatural type of experience?
I didn't. Okay, I'll start with exactly the reason I contacted you, and because I
Okay.
wasn't before that, I wasn't really engaged in all that stuff. You go to a church, you go to a synagogue, and it feels like you're supposed to feel something, but you just go, is this just because it says it in the Bible, and is this what people are saying it's something? But I never really felt I liked it, but I didn't feel like anything. And a couple of years ago, just very simple, this is how the story goes. I was walking out of Starbucks local one I went to, and all of a sudden I'm stopped in my tracks, and all of a sudden it's kind of like Field of Dreams, but not an audible voice. And all of a sudden there's two words in my head: Jill, Facebook. And I'm like, this is a girl
Huh.
that I knew 25 years ago, who I was really, I mean, we were good, we became good friends, but unbeknownst to me, she was with the man who would become her husband, and then she didn't know how to tell me, kind of one of those things. But I quickly knew something about this person. I just had this immediate bond, and she's the only person I ever met who called me a soulmate. And at the time when it was like I found out the reality of her situation, I was like, well, why would somebody call you that if they're involved with someone else? This was very heartbreaking. And then years later, I learned there's a lot of ways to interpret that word. I even wrote like
Mm.
a novel at the time to as a cathartic thing called
Oh,
Soulmates, trying to come to terms with things in my life that led up to meeting her and just this heartbreak. But then understanding what it really means in a deeper level now, that with all the different dimensions, it's like it can mean a lot more than, oh, that's the husband or something, that's the guy you were supposed to marry. And I wasn't in a time in my life where I could have done anything. And and anyway, so I have this thing. I look at the Facebook page. We were not Facebook friends because I kind of did some stuff that I wasn't super proud of, like wrote her some the poison pen letter kind of stuff when you're pissed at somebody and they go, oh, but years later, it's like I did think about her a little bit over the years. All of a sudden, I look on her page and she had passed away just a few months ago, just before she was 49 years old, very young. She
mm.
had two children. She was married to that same guy for all those years. And it looked like her life became like one of such powerful impact with so many people. It was like the whole town she lived in, she moved back east, even though we met in Los Angeles, was like celebrating this person. They started foundations in her name. She
Wow.
worked for the city. She was just this like person who was like the most amazing, like
Uh,
a higher being almost. Like it just felt like that. And so I mean, I could have just left it at that, but I started like reading. I got really, like it just brought it back, but I knew immediately who it was. It wasn't like, who did I know named that with that name?
That
I knew, and
was
then I saw,
one of my questions. How did you know it was this Jill when that popped into your head? You
because
knew.
this person was, someone, people can come into your life and be there a very short time, like a relatively short time. I had another friend who passed away, was there a couple of years, and the impact was great when because he passed away. Certain times you're supposed to meet people and they might not be people forever, but they're just, they're just, the impact is so great.
Yeah.
And so all the experiences I had in my life, there was never anyone else with that name, but it was just because all of a sudden
Mm.
it's like I just knew. It wasn't like,
Right.
Jill, let me think, let me go through who did I go, who did I see? No,
Right.
you just knew. It was like, it just a knowing, and it was, I can't explain, but
Jill
it was
Facebook.
like that. Yeah, Jill,
Had
two
that ever
things.
happened to you before this
Never,
time?
ever,
Okay.
never. It was, and okay, so then, so I just thought, you know what, this is, I think, what got her to communicate and keep, not just like, here's a one-time shot. I went back to a place where she worked at, you're in Burbank at Warner Brothers, whatever.
Okay.
And I went where we had lunch a few times, and I sat outside there on a Sunday, and I walked over there, and there was like a studio tour going on, so there was more noise than I expected, all that. But anyway, I sat there talking literally to an empty chair, like as if she's there. I'm going to
Wow.
talk to her.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt, and that drew it in where I feel like
Mhm.
when they do that, they want to communicate. They want to know. What one thing I got from all this is that she didn't like to be considered like all her family. And you read their posts and her friends and family, they talk about her in past tense. I miss
Right.
you. You were
Right.
like this amazing. I wish we could, whatever. You're gone. And when they
Mm.
know either, but all of a sudden they're not gone, and but they want to be engaged. And I just did
Yes.
it, just not knowing, and just feeling like maybe it's a fantasy. I don't know, but I just kept doing it. And then but I didn't feel any energy like this. It was just me, like visualizing, assuming, hearing a voice in my head a little bit, but still not knowing if it was real or just wishful thinking. Like, oh, maybe, now that she's passed away, you can talk. And it's like, because I would, if my life had worked out a certain way, she would have been, my love of my life kind of person. That's how I felt about her at the time.
Mm.
So, but then all that happened when the cat passed away. That's a few months later. A few months into this is the end of
Oh,
2018.
okay.
There's this, okay, other thing. So,
Your cat, your Persian cat.
yeah, this is the Persian cat. Okay, and I know it sounds silly to have a cat, but people do talk about the
Oh.
the pets. I mean,
Oh,
and they
absolutely.
usually will talk about pets like in a near death. They'll see them or in
Yes.
the when they talk to the medium, your dog that passed away, they're
Yes.
there, and
Hmm.
people are always grieving the pets, almost like supposed to. Well,
Of
I've had
course.
dogs my whole life with my parents, and then I, through a friend, I connected with this cat, and I kind of rescued it the last couple
Mm.
years of its life. It was very kind
Mm.
of brought her back to life. And they say when cats choose you, you're like, that's you're, they'll
Ah.
choose you. And I was like, for what? I always joked when people posted cat videos like crazy cat ladies, and I made fun of them. And then I
Hmm.
became one because I just had this bond. But as Tiffany, that's the cat's name, was getting more like ill, you could tell that her time was kind of limited. I mean, she kind of had all these but they do live 9 lives. There's all these injuries and all these sicknesses, and they keep bouncing back. You think,
Yeah.
okay, this is it. Nope, back.
And they
Here's
bounce back.
eighth life, not. But anyway, eventually they can't forever.
Yeah.
Um, so I felt Jill's voice, or intuited, however I intuited her communication with me, but I was not feeling anything in my hands at the time. Like saying, when it's her time and she leaves her body, just expect some really bizarre stuff to start happening. And I'm like, okay. So we go to the place, and the last thing, Tiffany looked at her mom, who was her longtime, parent, my friend, and then looked at me the last thing she saw. And then the doctor said, or the vet said, she's gone. And I'm like, something told me no, but it was quiet in the room. It wasn't like, okay, where's the psychedelic lights and all this stuff. Anyway, when I got home, there was this, like, it was like heat and energy, and like part of the whole place, I was like feeling vibrations like everywhere, and all the places, especially where she would sleep or where she would
Right.
be, like, I'd put my hand there and it'd be like this, like not
Yeah.
like literally shaking, but just like a total vibration, like a
Yes.
wall of energy and heat.
Hmm. You could feel it.
And
Hmm.
then I went for, so I was like, something's up. And then I would go for walks. And on the last day that she was alive, the cat, Tiffany, we took her out in a stroller. That's what crazy cat parents do, and stopped in a couple places. And I walked down that same street in those exact spots. All of a sudden, I felt the buzz in my right hand, like, zzz. And then I
Oh,
got near my friend's car, and it was like a force field. So you know that the cat, but I felt like Jill had facilitated that. So it was almost like,
mm.
here's my right hand, that's Tiffany, and then all of a sudden, Jill, every time I said Jill, it's like it was the left hand. All of a sudden, would be in this buzz, this zone, and then shortly thereafter, my mom, who's elderly, she fell and went to the hospital and almost died, and it was a whole trauma. And all of this energy, it really sustained me. Now I was thinking, well,
Mm.
is this my subconscious mind projecting my needs or whatever? And I just became more convinced over time that it wasn't like just me projecting it, because I never had felt this before. And but it was like Jill was like not as fully engaged. And then after Tiffany, it became like both hands. So they're with me all
Oh.
the time. And then when my mom had circulation issues, I could take my hands were so hot from all this energy that I
Hmm.
could touch it, like almost like Reiki, but you're actually touching it,
Hmm.
and heat it up, and in like a minute it would just be like feeling good and warm. And it's real energy that's in my hands, and people could
Mm.
feel it. Most people, some people, I would say. So I was like this thing where you tell certain friends selectively and they get it, and some were like, so you had to kind of pick and choose.
Hmm.
But anyway, that's been, so it's, so I started researching and going into that community, the afterlife topics on Facebook, and researching things, and I never saw anything where an old soulmate or a friend from years ago comes back to almost guide you through a difficult time in your life, stays for
Hmm.
several years at least, and promises, no, they'll stick around anyway. So and I never saw anything like that. And where a pet stays with you, and not just stays with you, but like all of a sudden you feel a scratching, or, and everywhere we go we hear her song, because she's the eye of the tiger, hear that song constantly, see images of cats. You know how you'll see all those things, the millions of butterflies when you go hiking, and then just different things. There's so many different things that you can interpret and say, well, it's a coincidence, but there's like, if there's 100 of them, then something's up. So just,
Right.
this cat's is like I don't know, and it's just they're with me all the time, and I know it's crazy. I can't see them, I can feel them, but the energy is in me. And I was tested out. I'd say, Jill, okay, play the piano on my hands, like one to one one, and one finger, if I go kiss, like a little kiss, touch this, and every time it's the same response. It feels like it's not just like, my mind could not do that.
Wow.
I just tested it a lot, and after a while became like a normal part of my life. So that's that's the basics.
How long ago did you sit? You went to Burbank and you sat at that table and you were talking. How long ago was that? And you were
That
trying
was
to
it was the end, right after Thanksgiving. It was the
2018,
Wednesday
did you
after
say?
Thanksgiving 2018, which was 5 months after she passed away, based on what I read, because it was
Okay.
in the local paper there. I saw the date. And then like a few days after that was like 4 days later was that. So
And
that's
then
when that
how
was.
soon
Almost
after?
coming on 3 years now, and the cat, it's about 2.5 years since she passed away.
Okay. And before Tiffany, your
Yeah,
Persian cat passed away,
yeah,
in that time,
yeah.
the time leading up to that, how was your connection with Jill? Like, did you have anything with the energy with the hands
I
at
didn't.
that point?
I think I said it did not. I just
Didn't.
would communicate.
Okay.
This I felt the sense of it. I would communicate. Like got visions of different things. Like a friend of mine's mom passed away, and I was at the cemetery, and all of a sudden I got this vision, which just came. I didn't think of Jill dressed appropriately for a funeral,
Oh,
jumping up around the graves and saying, like, as if to say, that's not who we are, this is who we really are. We're out of our
oh,
body, their body has to go somewhere, or be cremated, but we're still around. So there was things like that, but it wasn't and I would feel this peace. I would talk to her kind of, but I didn't. But I was kind of like, it partly not convinced, because I was like I want to believe it, but I wasn't getting like this kind of confirmation. And when that happened, I was,
physical.
just physical. Yeah, the physical manifestation that others can feel it in my hand, and the energy is so hot that it, does it.
That's
And then
pretty
I, or
convincing.
I tested out, like I had some sciatica issues, and I'd say, can you help warm like the leg or whatever, rub, like do some massage, and it would feel better. Now I could, of course,
Wow.
we could, a skeptic
Sure.
could say, well, your brain's doing it, and all, but
Absolutely.
none
Yeah.
of this stuff ever happened. I've had pets. I've had a friend that passed away, a really good friend. I even wrote the book I showed you that about that. I've had spiritual dealings before, very earthbound, and not, and these things have never happened before. And I never talked to a medium. I never, it
Mm.
just never, I always believed there was more. I always believed that there's a beyond, but not, this, nothing ever manifested crazy like this, in
And
this
so
way.
now, ever since Tiffany's passing, how often do you feel the energy then in one or other or both hands?
Every single day, like in the morning I could
Wow.
just say, oh, hey Tiffany, or one of her nicknames, and all of a sudden it's this, I can say, and right now I'm doing it, and I say purr, and all of a sudden the fingers tingle on the right hand,
Wow.
is the purr, like it's the purr, because that was the thing. Also, the other funny thing, music, there's an obscure Elton John song that I sang to her called "We All Fall in Love Sometimes," when she, in her last days or whatever, when she was just there as a peaceful moment, and I have it to an instrumental piano version of it. And I have this playlist with hundreds of songs, and every so often that song will come up. Jill and I would talk about the Partridge Family. Those songs will come up out of hundreds of songs. The song "Angels" by Robbie Williams, which is one about angels, but I'm loving angels instead. Certain songs, certain things,
Mm.
whatever. It had, and Eye of the Tiger comes on the radio at these odd times when you just don't expect. And then the writer of Eye of the Tiger, who I met on a cruise years ago, called me to do a bio for another thing he was doing. And I told him, you've been manipulated by a cat. Did you know this? And he thought it was fine. So the odds of this, I said, this is like this too much. I can't. It's
Yeah.
really exciting now. So Tiffany's mom loves all this stuff, but she says baby told me or this and that, but not so much that, which you'll feel it on occasion. But I have something that I've been given that allows
Mm.
this, and it is daily. Whether I engage in it, I wake up in the morning and I go, all of a sudden it's like I just feel it all the time, certain degrees of intensity, but it's just there. If I say, if I want to, if I'm with visiting my mom and I want to help her out, whatever, with her numb feet, I say amp it up, and they just go, and it's there. It's almost like paddles, almost like when somebody's on the table, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, yeah. That just it's not, it's heat, and it just comes, but and every so often there's a little scratch or a push or a this or that. So it's kind of a weird thing. I can't, like I said, these things are not normal, mainstream, typical things. So I just assume that that's what I'm
This
dealing with, even if
is
I
very
can't
unique.
visualize it. Yeah, it's lingered. Now here's another thing. Through my other work, a publicist took me up to do a bio for a woman who was a well-known like radio psychic in LA. And I went to her house, and she's dealt with this stuff, and has been a medium for years.
Okay.
And she kind of seemed annoyed because I was asking her questions about it, because I was so curious, because she wanted me to just do the work. But then I
Oh,
told her about Jill and Tiffany, and she says, well, they'll communicate with you, but don't depend on them. They're not reliable. And I think they took it as a challenge, like, we're not going to let this old grump tell you that we're not going to be, so we're going to stick around. And my assumption is, I've been told, or I've been intuited, that they're going to stay around and guide me through all the things I need to go through. They're like spirit guide kind of characters. And I don't really
hmm.
know what other people talk to when they talk about spirit guides, and you have
Yeah.
so and so, but they're like, I know them. They're like real, and it's very powerful. So that's the
Y-
basics.
Yeah, I have heard of loved ones who've passed on and they are working, I guess, as spirit guides. I don't know
Yeah,
what you call it, and animal spirit guides too. I know
yeah,
people
yeah.
who feel very strongly they have animal spirit guides. So
Yeah, but these are like where I know them. I know what they look like. I know who they are.
yeah,
I like,
yeah,
it's not like
you
I'm
have
like, I wonder who that is, or
yes,
or when you talk to, I did have one session with the medium, and my uncle from 25 years ago passed away, came through. It was clear, but they dance around it until you can figure it out. This is very direct. I know
right.
who Jill is. I know who Tiffany is, and
Two,
when
three,
you
almost
engage
three
them. Yeah.
years they're with you now. Is that
Yeah,
right?
Tiffany
Wow.
died in March 2019,
2021. Okay.
right before my mom's mishap, when she, the life changed a lot with my parents and stuff. They're older now. And then Jill was, that was in the end of November 2018. It's
Yeah.
almost 3 years. And through that, with the pandemic coming and all
Mm.
this, so it's almost like, and just other things. like it's almost like the timing was just right. And I always felt bad about Jill leaving her family with 2 kids and her husband and this great family. She had several brothers and sisters behind, and I've seen some of their posts on Facebook. I do not engage them. That's just, you don't
Oh,
do
you
that.
don't. Okay. So you
No,
don't
no,
know
no.
if
No,
she's in contact with any
she
of
could be.
them.
I mean, she kind of implied that that's my thing. I take care. We can be in
Oh,
multi dimensions. We're not all like, I'm not limited to this, but I got a very pretty clear, don't reach out, because I don't know
okay.
what that serves. That might, like, it might upset. I don't, it's just
Sure.
not done. It's like if she wants to communicate with them, that's her other,
Yes.
in her other ways. I don't feel like they're limited like we are into one conversation or one
Right.
connection at one time.
Hmm.
They just do whatever they're going to be doing. So
So when you say you intuit, so you're not hearing audio like an audible voice,
no,
but
it's not audible. No.
but you sense when you're communicating with her, you do
Yeah.
get an impression, or is it a download of information, would you say, of when she
It's more,
answers?
it's kind of conversational, whatever. It's things that hit my head. And sometimes when I'm by myself, obviously, not when people are around, I will, it'll come out, like I'll just speak it out, whatever, and it'll be like this, all of this conversation with her. But obviously,
Okay.
you can wear these anywhere, and people think you're on the phone. But I just keep it very like, I'm just,
True. Yeah.
but it's, again, it's just things that, guidance, advice, or things that wouldn't be, but the bottom line is, it's sort of like near death, where you maybe you can't prove it specifically scientifically, but your life is different and changed and everything. And there's a certain peace in any situation. The way I respond, I don't get angry at all. I can, but I just,
Mm.
everything's calm and focus on this and that. And just, and also we take these things on Sunday morning, like we call them gratitude walks, where I go
Mm.
walk, and it's like me, but them. And I just say what I'm grateful for, and it's sort of a guided, like, thing. But it's the center
Wow.
of the week. It's sort of like my church, so to speak, where it's just the beginning of it, and it really is. It's kind of, and one concern is, maybe I become too reliant on it, like as if, okay, what
Mm.
if one day I wake up, but
Right.
it hasn't, they haven't just gone away. I keep, and all of a sudden it's like, here we are. So it's, yeah, that's, that's what makes this interesting. It's not like an appearance or just in a dream or just a one-time shot. That most people would be very satisfied with that. This is just
It's an
lingered, and
ongoing.
it's in my hands right now as I do it. There's like this energy. I feel it's like throbbing.
Would you
So yeah.
categorize this now? I interviewed William and Deborah, and they spoke of they call it trans-dimensional relationship.
Yeah.
You know much about that? Would you categorize this as a?
Is that like romantic? Is that like people
I
that
don't
pass
think
away
it
and they
has to be
continue?
romantic, because parents
Okay.
can have it with their
Oh, okay. Oh, I see,
children or
where they
sibling.
continue.
Yeah, a connection, a
I
deep,
guess
deep
that's what it
connection, and they're
is.
communicating, and
Okay.
they're still having a
Okay.
relationship with, but it sounds like
Even,
that's really what you're doing.
well, my thing is like, it feels like a reconnection, almost like two people can meet and literally be like soulmates and have a soul connection, but you're supposed to be on different trajectories to learn different lessons for different reasons. Obviously, Jill was meant to impact the people she did and where she ultimately ended up in her
Yeah.
life. And that, I wouldn't want to ever deprive her of that. I mean, I'm like, God, I'm just so glad it didn't work out, because thank God, because she really got
Right.
to do so many things. And my
Yeah.
journey's been a little bumpier, but it's just the right journey to have been on. I had a short-lived bad marriage, and
Mhm.
I always had problems connecting with women and female, at that, for just
Mm.
ups and downs. And some people, like, their whole lives like perfect marriage or seeming that, even though
Mm.
nothing's perfect. And I kind of feel like, okay, that was probably the best connection, but obviously your journey wasn't supposed to be about this life connection. So
If you wouldn't mind, remind me when you met Jill. How long ago was it when you
oh,
first?
that was in the fall of 93. So it was 25
93.
years ago. And I was pretty
Okay.
new at the writing. I was kind of new in my career. I was like, God, I feel so old now. Like, I was like 29 at the time. So, but I was like immature and spiritually very immature. I had,
Mm.
a few years later, became a Christian. I opened my eyes to spiritual things I never had before. And just, your time is your time, and you evolved.
Right.
And I'm glad I evolved away from literal religion, because when you're in that, nothing's wrong. A lot of people, it's good for them, but you're not open to it. You think, they say, oh, if you spirit communication is like this, demonic work, or it's a
Mhm.
bad thing. And that's something you read about. But if you're experiencing it, it's good, and it's a positive thing. It's not like,
Right.
that. So that is, so I came at the time when I was very open to new things, which
This
is a
is
good thing.
very interesting, this story, because well, the unique element I feel like to it is that you met, you knew each other. How long did you know one another before you kind of went your separate ways?
It was less than 6 months. That's the funny thing. We were like good friends. We hung out and did a lot of good stuff, and then, but it
And
wasn't.
then that,
It
and then,
never. It
and
wasn't. It wasn't a romance because it just never quite got there. It just was. But I just was like, when you meet somebody and you're crazy about them, but then,
yeah,
and they may feel the same way. We're like, who says, oh, we're like soulmates when you start talking to each other, talk about spiritual things, talk about silly stuff. And then, and then they say that, and then you think it means something. And obviously it took 25 years to mean something.
amazing, right? This is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So,
And you, so obviously the benefits of your relationship with Jill and Tiffany,
yeah.
I mean, you feel emotional support, you get
Yeah.
guidance,
Yeah.
like you're saying,
Yeah.
through some difficult times.
Yeah.
That's really amazing and hopeful.
Yeah. It really is, because it helps kind of ground you, and also just going through different things, just keep cool in all situations. And there's a whole
Hmm.
situation with my parents and caretaking and chaotic stuff. And like my sister does a lot. She's having health troubles because she doesn't cope well with stress. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I sometimes have those problems, but I'm just like, everything's cool. And all of a sudden I'll feel the buzz, and like in my hands, and go, oh, okay, I can be cool now. It's like, we got you, we got you.
Interesting.
And I mean, it works even when you go to the dentist. It's like, when you talk about your out of body experiences, that's when you want to leave your body. But all of a sudden you feel this. Or when I was
Hmm.
on a flight on a small plane when I was up in Washington State going somewhere, and you're like, you could, anything can happen. You feel like, okay, you're with me, whatever happens.
Mm.
I'm,
Calming presence.
you're with me, and I will then, and when I'm out of this body, hopefully, I'm not crazy, and I can experience you in a deeper way. So I don't have the fear about death now because of that. Now, I'm not saying
Wonderful.
when it gets close, you're not thinking, oh my God, but I just feel it's like,
Do
like,
you
okay, like
find
others are waiting. So it's good.
do you often use your hands to heal or help like you do with your mom? Do you do that with others?
I have done it a few times with a few others. I have a disabled friend that I've helped who knows it and very open about it and all that. And actually,
Mhm.
this woman that I did a reading with, she's talked to her because my friend has lost a few people. So very, very
Oh,
lovely. Who I connected via somebody in that Cyrus's community and in the afterlife topic. I have done it a few times with my dad and a few friends, but more,
mhm.
it started feeling like a more of a parlor trick, like, oh, guess what I
Really?
can do. And it became a little
Oh,
bit like I didn't want
oh,
to make it like a silly thing, so I
yeah.
don't do it. But if people, yeah, I've done it a few times for different people, but other times you're like, and then after COVID, no one wants to touch, so it's a little less of that,
True. Yeah.
it's real, don't touch me, I'm
Yeah.
made of cooties.
Gee. Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
true.
COVID kind of, made it a little more
I wonder to
less touch,
myself, I mean, she reached out to you first, but I
it,
wonder
yeah,
how, if what really pushed it forward was when you made it real. I feel like when you went to that place that you guys knew each other, the two of you knew each other,
yeah,
and you visualized her and you made it real, and it's like you're
yeah,
calling to her. I wonder to
yeah,
myself if others who might be watching this and they want to connect with a loved one, if
yeah.
there's any, if that can be possible,
Yeah, I mean,
and that,
that's the whole thing. I'll read, anytime I read something on like her page, or people post on the anniversary or about her husband and their relationships. It sounds like it was really good. She says, just don't ever feel insecure. I'm the one who came to you, just like
right.
Tiffany chose to stay with you. In other words,
Mm,
and anytime
yes.
somebody puts you down or makes you feel bad, we are like sort of evolved beings, whatever you want to call us, and
Mhm.
we've chosen to help you. So just be
Right.
happy. But yeah, she reached out. So I responding to, if they feel a nudge, sometimes people will dismiss it,
Right.
and they should always, if they feel like, I wonder what that is, or sometimes they'll have a sense, but they'll be like, oh no, that's silly. engage and see what
Yes,
happens and all
yes.
that, and sometimes people, when they're really grieving, they'll look for signs and they won't get them because they're trying too hard. It's like you can
Okay.
be getting back to normal, and all of a sudden this can happen. One thing I really like to help is when people, and I've written a lot when they post about when people lose a pet, because I know that can be almost as traumatic as a person
Mm-hmm.
sometimes for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And just to know, from my experience, I'm going to tell you, your pet's with you. Not only just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, beyond a rainbow bridge in heaven, wherever that is, they're like literally in and around you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's, if I'm experiencing it, there's no reason that they're not with you and staying there somewhere, some way. So,
Right.
so I like to use it to encourage people where it feels appropriate and where people are open to it.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Well, we're coming very close to the time where we're going to have to close out.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
before we do that, is there anything else, any other experiences or anything you want to share that you feel like you wanted to
Oh, yeah.
talk
One of
about?
the things is, I think people have different experiences with all these things, and I've been reading, in those communities about this stuff, and there are of course skeptics, but I think that it's that I wish we lived in a world where we wouldn't have to be afraid to talk about these things with everybody, where there wouldn't be the skepticism, or we wouldn't
Mhm.
have that fear of what are people going to think of me if I talk about this stuff, or have to act like a little embarrassed about it, or it's weird or whatever.
Mhm.
So I just think, but I think obviously, if I'm experiencing this, I did have one other experience briefly
Mm.
when I did through this, when I talked to the medium and I had an encounter with my uncle and I felt it was him. I didn't contact his daughter, who's now in her 40s, who lost her dad when she was in her 20s, about it. But like a month ago, long after, she had actually, because she needed some resolution for things, she had actually contacted a medium long after I did, not knowing. And when I said it, I thought, okay, she's going to think something's wrong. She said she confirmed everything, and everything matched up so
Oh,
perfectly. So she got a resolution, and she got what, but everything. If I had told her when I first did it, it wouldn't have meant anything, and then all of a sudden now it does. So there's
right.
that, and that's the
Timing.
only, yeah, it came out of it. I mean, it was kind of like but knowing that, when I found out that he was like, knew things of details about my life and was kind of observing, I said, well, then he knows that he has grandchildren and that his daughter's doing this or that. So they're aware. I don't know how and what they're doing otherwise, but they're really aware, and they know about
They're
COVID, and they
involved.
know they may not be having to worry about COVID and vaccines, but they know about it. And
Right.
they watch TV with you, and they listen when the songs come up. They can do playlists, and they can listen to the songs with you, and they can
Mhm.
just, they're engaging. And whether or not you have this experience or not, your people are around you somehow.
Mm.
So that's all. That's what I believe. So, I
Yeah, and
hope, I don't
that's
know who else does, but
comforting.
it's my life. So yeah,
That's comforting. I do
yeah.
want to know, though, any projects you're working on or um, books that, I wanted to mention this book and I'm going to put, the links in the YouTube video, but
Okay. Yeah.
do you want to share just a little bit about?
Well, the book I wrote, which I try to do agents and stuff, but I did self publish it, and it's now on like Kindle on Amazon. It was about I call it Wayne's World meets Tuesdays with Maury. It's kind of with a friend. It's called It's All Good: Emails from a Dying Best Friend. Kind of the exchanges we had with a friend of mine who was like, best man at my wedding, and then he got cancer, and it's kind of our, like, through that process and what I learned about death. It was a belief that I'd see him again, but it wasn't really about that. So, but it's about the experience of going through and what you learn. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'll refer to it to encourage me, because if he died when he was 38, if I'm 20 years beyond, almost 20 years beyond that, I shouldn't be upset about anything now. You know what I mean? Because so you learn a lot of things. I also have written and gotten some pretty good feedback on it. The only way I could tell this story I'm telling you is in a fictional way, to create a Hallmark kind of vibe screenplay kind of thing. And I've gotten some good feedback on it, and a few people are reading it, and we'll see. But
Mm,
it doesn't matter if it, so it's called, I had the Christmas version. She came home for Christmas, and I just changed it because someone said there's so many of those. I revised it and called it Healing Hands, and it's gotten some, a few people. So I'm
ooh,
still, and I was trying to push it before the pandemic, and starting it a little again. But I feel like if I wrote some true life new agey book, it would, like, five people would read it and go whatever. But if you write a thing where we all
right.
like to know somebody from the past can come back to us and, you know, kind of ghost, but without the crime kind of, you know, movies are good like that. So I think, you know, we'll
Yes.
see. But anyway, at least I am a writer, so I have to write stuff if if I'm so, you know, led to. So anyway, that's what I did. So
Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
it's cool. Okay,
cool. Very cool.
yeah, okay,
Okay, well, I guess we will have to be closing out now. We're past
yeah,
our little time limit. And this has been
okay.
so
Thank you.
fun. Thank you so
Yeah, it's been
much.
great, Julie. So appreciative of your time, and you know you know that you're doing this in general with anyone who has a story to tell, that you're intrigued and
It's
they want
been,
to
yeah,
share it.
I'm enjoying it.
It's great. Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. We're going to sign off and hope
Yeah.
you're having a
Thanks.
wonderful day or evening.
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye bye.